Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Charlene Aaron. The midterm elections are finally here, and here's the scene. American voters are casting their ballots to decide the balance of power in Washington. But millions didn't want to wait to have their voices heard. Early voting topped 18 million in 32 states. And while both parties are calling the early turnout a sign of strength, analysts say Republicans have the upper hand. Ephraim Graham has a look at why.
It's Election Day in America, and voters are lining up to have their say. There are 36 governor's races, 435 House seats are up for grabs, and control of the U.S. Senate. But the biggest message for many Americans is disappointment with the White House.
This is really the last chance for America to pass judgment on the Obama administration and on its policies. And the president himself said he's not on the ballot, but his policies are.
Obamacare is arguably the president's single biggest achievement, but Americans don't like it. The latest numbers from an Associated Press poll show only 3 in 10 say they support it, while 48% oppose it.
Obamacare doesn't work.
And Republicans have run more ads against Obamacare than any other issue. About 23,000 in just 2 weeks in October.
It also includes the violation of the most fundamental promise of Obamacare, to let people keep their doctor and their insurance if they wanted to keep it.
Many Democrats have been running away from Obamacare, the president and his low approval ratings. But some of them are sticking up for him.
He's taken us from the worst economic crisis that we've faced since the Great Depression through 55 straight months of job growth in the private sector. That is the longest sustained period of job growth in American history.
But voters clearly don't see it that way. An ABC News Washington Post poll shows 7 in 10 Americans rate the nation's economy negatively, and just 28% say it's getting better. The campaigning, analyzing, and talking are now over, and it's up to voters casting their ballots here at the polls. And close Senate races in 2 states with early poll closing times could provide an early glimpse into the results. That's North Carolina and New Hampshire. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
CBN News chief political correspondent David Brody joins us from Washington, D.C. David, turnout is going to be key in this election, and evangelicals are a big part of the Republican base. We know that in 2012, fewer than half turned out to vote. Do you think they're more motivated this year?
Well, I think they're motivated. I think the question is, are they more motivated? We're about to find that out. Look, I think you need to compare apples to apples here, Charlene. And so let's look at 2010. In 2010, 30% of evangelicals voted in the elections. When I say 30%, we're talking about 30% of evangelicals actually showed up to vote. Now, we wait now in 2014 to see if 30% or more, and that's the key part of it, or more, will actually show up. I think it's dicey, Charlene. I'm not sure 30% are going to show up. Healthcare was a big deal back in 2010. It's still a big deal today, but it doesn't have the immediacy that it did back in 2010. We'll see on that one.
Why wouldn't they show up, David?
Well, I think a couple reasons. I mean, first of all, obviously healthcare is a big part of this. But the other part of this, and this is key, Charlene, and this goes to a larger point here, is that there are a lot of evangelicals, quite frankly, that are just not engaged in the process. Look, there are about 90 million or so, let's just call it 90 million straight up, evangelicals in this country. Only half are registered to vote. That's 45 million are registered to vote. But the story doesn't stop there. Out of those 45 million, only half of those actually show up. So 45 million are registered to vote. Only half of the folks that are registered to vote show up, and that's a big part of the problem. Quite frankly, what many evangelical leaders think is a big part of the problem in this country, that evangelicals aren't showing up in even more so than just 30%.
Wow. Well, can the evangelical vote turn the tide in this election?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it. It can. The question is, will it, and will they show up? Now, here's the good news, at least for Republicans. They need evangelicals to show up big time, especially down in the South, in North Carolina, in Georgia, in some other, Louisiana's another one. And of course, there are a lot more evangelical voters down there. And so a lot of these key races are in those southern states. Arkansas is another one. And so right now it is set up well in the sense that there are more evangelical voters to get down to the polls because it's the southern states, not those northeast states or some of the more liberal ones out west.
Well, let's talk about the Democrats now. Many are running away from President Obama and his policies. Can they run far enough?
Well, probably not. No, look, this is an election about the president. I don't think there's any question about it. And why do we say that? I mean, this isn't just a Republican line that they like to trot out and say it's all about President Obama. Look, President Obama says it's about his policies at the ballot. That's coming from the president's own mouth. And then we see his approval ratings at 42% nationally, under that in places like Georgia and Louisiana. I mean, he's at 32%, Charlene, in Kentucky. I mean, it is abysmal for this president. And so we wait and see as to how bad the damage is going to be done on Election Day. I don't think there's any question there's going to be damage done. The question is, how bad is it going to be?
Well, if the Senate goes to the Republicans, what do you predict for the next 2 years in Washington?
Well, let me think for a second. Gridlock. I mean, that's pretty much it, Charlene. It's going to be gridlock. And here's the thing. There was pretty much gridlock even before, even when Democrats had the Senate, because it's Congress. And this is what they do. They do gridlock very, very well. So I think what you're going to see is it's not going to be so much Congress as it's going to be this president going ahead with certain executive orders as it relates to immigration and some environmental policy and things like that. He believes that he has that authority, if you will, constitutionally, to go ahead and just make unilateral changes to the immigration policy of the United States. Of course, Republicans say that's unconstitutional. So that is the big battle I think that we're going to see in these next couple of years.
Certainly interesting times. David Brody, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Charlene.
And CBN News will have live election coverage online throughout the evening. You can find all the latest updates and analysis on our special election page at cbnnews.com, as well as on Facebook and Twitter. You can also sign up for alerts through email or through our CBN News app. Be sure to check out our special coverage beginning at 7 o'clock tonight. U.S. relations with Israel have reached a new low in recent years, and even though President Obama is not on the ballot, his policies are. Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell asked Americans voting in Israel what changes they'd like to see after the elections.
I Vote Israel is a group that encourages Americans living here to register and vote in U.S. elections.
We've helped them, inform them how to fill out their ballot. We haven't chosen the candidates for them. That's their business. But on the other hand, we're here to lend a hand and make sure that they participate in the election.
Americans in Israel have a unique vantage point, living in a Western-style nation in the Middle East, surrounded by enemies, something the United States often doesn't understand. We ask Americans here why they're voting and what's important to them.
First of all, I care about America. And second of all, I think that the elections are going to not only influence American citizens, but also the entire world.
Israel's security is important, the threat of a nuclear Iran and the more proximate threats. But I also care deeply about what is happening in the United States. So when I vote with the interests of both countries at heart.
One of the most important things is to get a balanced government in the United States, to not have Obama calling all the shots.
The greatest concern is the faltering relationship between America and Israel.
Some say those relations are faltering because President Obama doesn't understand the Middle East or history.
He's been very naive thus far. He's been demanding concessions from Israel time after time and not demanding anything, not receiving anything in return from the Palestinians.
We have been a true and trusted friend, ally to the United States. And we have been true blue, we've been trusted, we've held back our fire.
This is not about anti-Israel, this is not about Israel, this is about anti-Semitism.
I've made the joke many times that Obama never had any experience with foreign policy, so he had the CIA send him a list of the countries in the world in order of how friendly they are to the United States, and then he hung it on the wall backwards by accident.
And does God figure into the equation in the Middle East?
I absolutely believe that he does figure, and I think faith, certainly for Jews, but also for Christians, is really important, all of the challenges that we are facing today.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
American weapons could be in the hands of at least one al-Qaeda-linked group. Reports coming out of Syria say that al-Nusra, an al-Qaeda-backed affiliate, has taken over the headquarters of the Syrian rebels that America backs. The concern is that the weapons given to those Syrian rebels are now in the hands of the militants. Meanwhile, the number of killings by ISIS continues to rise. Monday, ISIS militants shot and killed 36 Sunni tribesmen, women, and children. That's according to an Iraqi official. This brings the number of people the extremists have killed from the tribe to 200. Here in America, new developments in the case against a Chicago man facing charges for trying to join ISIS. Prosecutors say the younger siblings of Mohammed Hamza Khan were arrested along with Khan last month at O'Hare International Airport. The siblings are ages 16 and 17. Khan is 19 years old. Officials say the siblings, like their brother, expressed passion for committing violence. Right now, they are not facing charges. Khan is charged with seeking to provide material support to a foreign terrorist group. Defenders of religious liberty recently stood up for their rights in Houston, supporting 5 Houston pastors who had their sermons subpoenaed by the city's gay mayor. And as Paul Strand reports, it was a night of fiery rhetoric.
Thousands gathered in a Houston church and many more watched online to join in defending the right of pastors to be free of government intimidation.
I stand here today with you that I may speak, preach, and teach on the issues that deal with society, the issues that the Bible speaks about.
Houston's mayor became upset with church-organized opposition to a pro-gay, pro-transgender city ordinance. In a legal move, she called for local pastors' sermons to be subpoenaed. One of the pastor's lawyers said it's sad how far Houston officials have strayed from the spirit of the First Amendment, then quoted the renowned French freedom advocate Voltaire.
I may not like what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And that is what the First Amendment is based on, ladies and gentlemen.
Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee pointed out an important truth about the Bill of Rights.
It never, ever, ever told you as a citizen what you cannot do. Every one of the Bill of Rights tells the government what it can't do.
After the publicity and outcry, the mayor withdrew the subpoenas, but the pastors and their allies suspect the battle's far from over. Duck Dynasty patriarch Phil Robertson knows about facing pressure while standing up for his beliefs.
It's been granted to you, Texas, to not only believe in Jesus, but also to suffer for him.
Host Tony Perkins ended the night with a command from Ephesians.
In the end, it simply comes down to one thing: standing. Having done all, stand.
Paul Strand, CBN News.
The Supreme Court is turning away 2 abortion-related appeals. Crisis pregnancy centers in New York City are required to disclose if a licensed medical provider works at the facility. The centers argued that the regulation violates free speech, but the High Court rejected their appeal Monday. The Supreme Court also declined to hear an appeal challenging the constitutionality of a Colorado law that prohibits people from obstructing entry to abortion clinics. An early winter storm slammed the eastern part of the country, bringing record-breaking snow and ice. Powerful winds and blowing snow made for treacherous driving in Maine, where up to a foot of snow fell. Frozen power lines knocked out power to some 135,000 residents. Parts of the South are also feeling the frigid temperatures, with record lows in Florida. Over the weekend, Columbia, South Carolina experienced its earliest snowfall on record, and parts of Tennessee got over 22 inches of snow. Winter doesn't officially kick off until December 21st. Coming up, the huge potential impact from Hispanic voters. But will Latinos let their voices be heard in today's election? In some parts of the country, Democrats are reportedly resorting to fear tactics to frighten blacks into voting. Democrats in Georgia are using the controversy in Ferguson, Missouri, to bring out the vote for Senate Democratic nominee Michelle Nunn. A mailer was sent out dealing with the police-involved shooting death of Michael Brown earlier this year. The flyer states, "If we want a better, safer future for our children, it's up to us to vote for change. The choices may not always be perfect, but the cost of inaction is simply too great." Some say what happened in Ferguson should not be used for political gain.
No, I don't think so. That turns a lot of people away from certain candidates when you use stuff like that. That's something that shouldn't be used as a way for you to gain an advantage. I don't believe in that.
A record 25 million Latinos are eligible to vote today. They now make up 11% of all possible voters nationwide. But whether or not they'll vote is the big question. In recent years, Hispanic voters' turnout has lagged behind other racial and ethnic groups. CBN's Heather Sells spoke with Hispanic megachurch pastor Wilfredo de Jesus from New Life Covenant Church in Chicago about the election and the Latino vote.
In terms of the Latino community, what is your sense of how invested people are, if they're going to turn out? Because that's always the question, will they turn out?
Well, yeah, that's a big question. I mean, the Hispanic community right now are disenfranchised with this current administration in the issue of immigration. And so that's going to be a hard one to get the Hispanic out, because it's a sense of who to trust now. Why cast a vote if now nobody's delivering? So it's going to be interesting to see if our Hispanic people are going to come out to vote across this nation.
Yeah. If they do come out and vote, hopefully they will. But what are the issues that are on their hearts and minds at this point in time?
Well, no doubt, immigration, poverty, and education. I mean, you got 66 million Latinos, Hispanics in this nation. And out of the 50 states, we have the majority in 2 states, New Mexico and California, from any ethnic group. And in 20 states, we are the majority of the minority. So we have an enormous influence if we just can come out and vote and begin to cause change for those 3 areas. Is the education part of it? Our high school students are dropping out. Our kids are not finishing college. And if we're going to be leading this nation, the Latinos, then we need our kids to stay in school. And that's something that we're faced with and we're dealing with as leaders.
Yeah, that is huge. I also wanted to ask you just about political and social involvement for pastors. I know I've been struck recently that pastors, especially at this point in time in our culture, are really across the continuum, if you will, on how involved to get. And you have been involved. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I support pastors and leaders to get involved. It's a government. It's a power within our community. And I believe that God created government. Why wouldn't we prophetically speak into it or encourage our young people to run for office? The Bible says in Proverbs that when the righteous govern, the people rejoice. And we haven't seen our people rejoicing in this nation for over 40 years. Why? Because the church has been absent. And we have been told as a young boy, don't get involved. Government, the politics, and church separate. I come to the scene and says, no, we must get involved. We must engage and prophetically speak to the leaders about the conditions of our community and our people. And if we can just get our hands around that as Christians, as pastors and leaders, then I think at the end of the day, God would be pleased because He's the one who created government. And we don't run from it. We engage it.
As you well know, there is phenomenal growth right now in the Latino population in this country as a whole. And then we are seeing church growth as well. Your church is the largest Assemblies of God church in the country. What is your hope in terms of the Latino church in this country and what kind of mark it's going to make?
Well, I was asked for many networks about this, and here's my take. The God is shifting in our government, in our country, this group of people who fear God and believe in the sanctity of marriage. And I believe that you got 28 million thereabouts Catholics in the United States, 17 million evangelicals. Between both of these bodies, it's over 45 million. And imagine with our belief in God and the fear of the Lord and the sanctity of marriage, there is a lot of things that we can do as a nation. And I think the Hispanic community are in this position to cause change, right? I mean, it's called Hispanic for a reason. We're His, and we're going to bring panic to this nation for a reason. And so with our godly views and our fear of the Lord, the United States is in need of a moral compass. We're decaying, and and I believe this election, and when the Christians get involved in the politics, then I think there'll be a better view and a better tomorrow.
We can all pray for that.
Amen,
Pastor Choco, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Up next, turning to health news, the latest tool that's helping women beat breast cancer. A new tool used to detect breast cancer appears to be working better than the traditional mammogram. Lori Johnson tells us about 3D mammograms and why getting one in addition to a regular mammogram could be the way of the future.
Jennifer Heft lives life to the fullest, but the hot air balloon enthusiast and race car driver could have lost her life to breast cancer had it not been for the 3D mammogram she got.
I truly, truly believe that the 3D mammography is what got my cancer early and is allowing me to pretty much live my life the way I want to.
3D mammograms have only been used for a few years. Compared to the traditional 2D mammograms, the 3D mammograms allow radiologists to get a better overall view of the breast.
A mass that has irregular borders in the upper part of the breast. And this is very much typical of what a cancer looks like, hidden on the 2D mammogram, but very well seen on the 3D mammogram.
Dr. Friedewald and her associates studied nearly 500,000 women and discovered the 3D mammograms detected nearly a third more cancers than regular mammograms did. The study appears in the most recent issue of the Journal of the American Medical Association.
We found invasive cancers, or the cancers that we worry about, the ones that could potentially kill people, more frequently in women who had the 3D mammogram versus the women who just had the 2D mammogram.
They also discovered 3D mammograms produced fewer false positives than traditional mammograms. Right now, 40,000 people die each year from breast cancer, but thanks to the 3D mammogram, that number may decline.
Life is short. My life's going to be long and full, and I'm going to go out and do the things I want to.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
And finally today, Superbook is reaching kids in Costa Rica. In honor of National Children's Day, CBN recently sponsored quite a few events and shared the animated series. In total, 932 children watched the episode, The Fiery Furnace, which tells the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The kids also enjoyed games and a special appearance by Gizmo. And 50 children prayed to receive Jesus Christ as their Savior. And we here at CBN News encourage all of our viewers to get out and vote today. And be sure to check out our live election coverage online throughout the evening. You can find all the latest updates and analysis on our special election page at cbnnews.com, as well as Facebook and Twitter. You can also sign up for alerts through email or our CBN News app. Be sure to log on and watch our special election coverage beginning at 7 o'clock tonight. And we'll see you then. Have a great election day, everybody. God bless.